Hello again. Because of the recording, we need to do the intro for Daniel again. So we have our friend Daniel from Israel, and he will talk about LARP in tourism. So here we go.
Yes, hello. So to add a little personal background, yeah, I was in a tour de Balkan and everything 2 years ago, and I was visiting a PoRtaL. Later went to, I believe it was Solmukohta. And then after the visit in the market, I was soul searching, looking what I want to do, and then somehow I was volunteering on a farm, in a Serbian farm, and then somehow I find myself organizing a birthday LARP for a local kid and his old village in Serbian, which I don't know. So I thought, okay, maybe this is something I should do with myself. Maybe it's a professional direction. And when I went back, I was expecting to do stuff, maybe like terrible creation, like some quest companies, really on an escape room format. But because everything in Israel works about which connections do you have, I find myself drawn into two different directions, which are EduLARPs, who are already covered well within, and LARPs in tourism. I'll try to describe this field, what I think of it, what distinguishes it, what challenges it present, and what kind of models have we been using to answer the needs. So first of all, an apologetic. I don't think that the public here actually needs this apologetic, but still have some maybe interesting points. Yeah, the stuff that we do usually, it's not totally LARP. It's people may say it's the grades, the art. It's not. It's really going for some lowest denominator. But money is good. It's a good thing to have, and it's a good thing for the hobby. For the hobby, for the culture, it brings sustainability. If some people may actually do it all the day, and not after work, it brings stability. It brings a possibility to do more stuff, and thus creating a wider influence on the society. You bring it to the masses. You people starting to be actually influenced by what are you doing in a wide situation. And now, many times when I'm doing EduLARPs, kids recognize me because they were in some festival. And kids know that I am fun, even before I'm opening my mouth about stuff they need to learn or stuff they need to, what we're doing right now. I say, okay, you were this very colorful person, then I remember you. There is very, the influence is strong. And just to give a little example, there was role playing before Dungeons and Dragons, like not to mention but in the 60s, 50s, 60s, after the going of Lord of the Rings to the masses, people were actually sitting together and trying to play Lord of the Rings. They didn't know how to do that, so there were a lot of ideas, but there were pretty interesting creative ways to play fantasy because the urge was there. And then came D&D, and it was really, not to say the lowest denominator, but it puts these beautiful things of fantasy and imagination into war game rules. And many would say, okay, it brings it down, it brings something very tangible, and so on. But then when you have like a book of rules, it shows people it's real, and you can sell it. And then the infection factor is much bigger. And the same with, okay, Hugim, it's basically Hebrew words for, like, say, after-school activities or like extracurricular activities. And we have a huge industry right now of Dungeons and Dragons Hugim at Israel. We have a few hundred people that work as full-time Dungeons and Dragons for children after school, paid by the parents. And of course, it needs to make money, so you have like one person making a game for 12 children, sometimes even more. And of course, it wouldn't be the same as if you can give anyone like attention and let them develop the character and so on. There is a lot of criticism, and 15 years ago I was really on the criticism side. But then I see, okay, but now we have like an entire generation of people that say after like when they're 25, yes, I remember 15 years ago I was in this crazy stuff, and I really miss it. And every day you see in our forums someone who says, yeah, I remember it still, and I don't know how to do it now. Maybe someone can teach me how to use the books, and now it's really wide and recognizable name. Like every middle class person would know what is Dungeons and Dragons, and react to it positively. It's like it's good for the children. And also it created a class of people who are really good at being GMs in public, like being animators, entertaining. And it also it creates some skill sets that weren't here before. So this is kind of a model we are looking for in the long run. But now let's see what I'm talking about. Yeah, problems are the prompt for new forms. And what would be the problems in shooting, in making LARP for people that doesn't know what LARP is? They don't have time to learn what LARP is. They don't want to listen what LARP is because they came for the holiday to be entertained. They don't have time for workshops because unless they're super interactive and very fun, like computer games tutorial, which is also a quest to achieve. But usually they came and they want to see something pretty. They want to be entertained. And it's not the same in LARPs because we are not always thinking about it, but our participants give us a lot. We, as LARP organizers, we expect a huge amount of commitment, and it's okay. First is participation fees, of course. Then you have production of costumes and props. When you have certain types of LARPs, you expect that at least some people would contribute to your magic, would come very colorful, very beautiful, and add to the sense of suspension of disbelief because they would sink a lot of time and or money into their own appeal. Third is pre-LARP prep. It can be like training with swords, if it's a military LARP. It can be character development, doing the pre-LARP character development as it is typical to College of Wizardry style games. It can be reading, like setting immersion, reading all of this crazy 40 pages long descriptions of words, but they want to come to your LARP and you're immersed and they're working for it. Active imagination, which means they want to create the suspension of belief for themselves. They come in because they know they want to make an escapism. They want to live in a medieval fantasy or in spaceships. They prep themselves into it, and then they really want to cover for all of your holes. Everything that is not perfect in your preparation and your production, they're okay. They want to help you. They want to help themselves feel it and imagine it. The last one is I call it bourgeois self-respect, willingness to behave silly in public. And it's also a very huge sacrifice for some people, and we often don't see it because for me it's very natural. I can go on the street and someone tell, okay, you're now an orc, and I would be an orc, or a lord, or a refugee, or what would you say? But many people, it's very unnatural for them to behave differently when someone looks at them. It's really hurts in their eyes. It threatens their social capital, their prestige, the sense of self even. And it's all the stuff that we asking of. Yes, it's basically basic requirements for participants in a hobby-based environment. And what I'm talking about are built upon a premise that there would be no such investment at upfront, and every investment that would be given should be like traded asked for, used, broken off. You have to fight for it. And this is like also trying to talk about this kind of context of participant contribution. I use now the words. Okay, it was messed up a bit. Okay, it was. This is just the square. So when I'm talking about hobby, it's all clear. Corporate in this context mean people that that do know what they're coming for. Like a group that are coming to play a LARP, maybe they're not very interested in the first place, but they know it's a kind of entertainment. They coming forth, they order it, they prepare themselves a bit, and it's something that they set their mind upon it. They are okay with it. The fees are usually different. Usually would be like the corporate would be paid for some organizations that send them, but they still have some. They still are in it. They still part of it. They would not participate in production. They would have some limited preparation usually. Like if you say okay, it's about gangsters, they would at least in their mind, maybe they won't watch anything, but in their mind they would reshuffle. Okay, what is going about? What I'm supposed to play? What kind of stereotypes I know? They would prepare themselves for this kind of stuff a bit. Imagination and playfulness are restricted because as like certain clients, they would accept more of you usually. The distinction is very clear. You are supposed to give them the fun, and they won't contribute much to it. They would be critical of your preparation, but they still would like, when you draw them inside it, okay, they would like to play. And playfulness also restricted because when people are in professional contexts, it's sometimes even more frightening, scary, and hard to give up this sense of self and to do silly stuff in public. Here, usually, like most of, I would be talking about financial sides of each of the models. It usually would be paid for a third side by the site or so. There is no participation in production. Usually there would be no preparation at all. In many of the settings, it would be like families that decided this morning they want to go to this side, and maybe they heard that there is supposed to be some kind of game, but they haven't read past first 4 or 5 words, and they have no idea. The imagination and playfulness, here you have a place to play because they are not prepared, because they don't know what they are coming to. You do have maybe more place to try to branch it out from them and play with them. And the models I'm about to present would work even if you won't succeed to get the imagination and playfulness out of them, because it's always a bet. Your clients the participants would be very wide. A wide range of people in position, what do they want? Maybe they have like 4 kids and one is sick and and they don't have any attention to it. But all of them are trying to get as much as possible. And many of their design is affected by this. I mean, yes, you would have a fun day going and solving some riddles and paying no attention and not getting in the story, but we try to throw as many hooks as possible and try to get you into this playfulness state for you to not only participate, to not really be here as a public, but actually go inside and play. And I would say this is one of the distinction for me, it's one of the distinction between LARP and like escape room or scavenger hunt or anything else. Do you have a role? Are you playing anything? Because yes, you can have challenges. You know how to solve challenges. It's okay. But you can do the same by being in the world, in the universe, by thinking the challenges are important for you, by getting that or actually for yours or for something else. It's not really, it's not only for your social status in this group. It's for the plot, for the world, for the other stuff. And we never give roles. We never give here in these models. We don't try to give people characters because usually it's at the start. At the start, people are not ready for it. Sometimes we try to imply characters on them. We try to invite them to step into characters. Okay. Okay, yes, first. So the prompts of this prompts that I talked are achieving this kind of engagement. These two parts are few. I wrote 4 categories. Challenges is yes, you just it's various time of stuff to get you thinking and to get you moving and to get you outside the stuff you do every day. So it can be puzzles, of course, but usually we always try to shoot for physical activities because the body is the thing that, like the mind responds to the body. If you're only thinking, if you're only trying to, if you're comfortable, it's much harder to get this playfulness. If when a puzzle asks you to go like this and look from behind, or to go up, or you need to climb something, or you just need to look through a looking glass, or do something extravagant, everything physical, it's moves something in you, it allows you to open a bit. Intrusive acting. We use actors, we use it's LARPers nowadays. We tried to use some professional actors, but we decided it was not worth it because usually they don't do intrusive well. Because people are used to actors acting on a scene, and they know that even if they breaking the fourth wall, you're not really supposed to do your own thing with them. And when actors, professional actors, they're doing it in that way, okay, yes, he's being weird. Oh, he's going around me. That's so nice. Oh, how very interesting. He's doing a scene just near my nose. But this sending the wrong message because he's not doing a scene. He's talking to you. He's desperate for you to actually have impact on him. So it has to, this acting has to break private space. So and be a little intimidating. Of course, you have to look and on the person and see what kind of, like maybe his private space is here, maybe his private space is here, maybe he would be, like maybe he's a little scared already. So you need to be very sensitive. But what to do, how exactly do you do it? But yes, you need to intrude a little to show them, okay, I'm in here now. He is really near me. It's not a story I view, it's a story I am in. Self-expression is giving people a place to talk. Sometimes it would be an actor asking them someone and demands an answer. Sometimes it would be, okay, you need for the next part, you need to design an amulet. You need to make an amulet to be protected against the ghosts. But with the amulet, you have some materials, but you pick what symbol do you use. You pick how do you use the words, you pick what to say to him, you pick whatever to lie or not. There we are going to the next one. But every time they making some kinds of expressions, they do build their own characters. They decide how do they wish to participate in the game, and they're becoming a little closer to the act you want them to go through. And the last one is choices. And it's a bit controversial because it's make life more difficult for anyone. But I am a big fan of agency. And for me, it's very important personally to give this kind of to give people important choices. Usually, the game would be like scripted, but with 2 or 3 endings, possible endings for each group. And yes, and the possibility when people make choices, they tie themselves into a narrative in a very strong way. It's often said that the brain doesn't really distinguish between choices real, made in the real world, and choices made in imaginary worlds. So every choice defines the players, the participants in context of the game. Okay, here would the movie work? I'm not sure. No, it doesn't work. Okay, it's a pity. It was on the. Yeah. No, it probably won't work. It is on YouTube, but okay. There was supposed to be a movie for the last incarnation of this game that we made, but between the travels, the journeys of the presentations, the presentation, it probably got lost. Maybe at the ending, if you'll had time, I'll find it on YouTube for you. So the Herodium model this is like the model we use the most. There is 5 or 6 incarnations of it in various sites and for various needs. And this, the Herodium, each model, is for the biggest or the first game that used it. So it's inner eternal calling. And the Herodium now is set in the desert palace of King Herod, who was recently unearthed, like 10, 15 years ago. And it's a very beautiful, big and beautiful complex. And every holiday we are doing this kind of games there. First time, okay, MMORPG time management, you can maybe even space management, but it's very influenced by this kind of World of Warcraft style of planning of plot. Because the basic lacunas, the basic demands were it should be open all the time. Groups are going through would now go through it for 8 hours. And each of them should get the story. So what is done is that the story is time equals progress. Space equals time equals progress in the story. There are a few NPCs that are going around not going around. They are just in the complex, sitting in various places. The first one sends you into a quest. Then you go to the next one, get some stuff from him. He sends you to a few quests around. He sends you further, and so on. You get to the last one. You save the day. You make this distinction. But the times everything you do something, the world around you is changing. The world around you is changing. For example, you banished the ghost. You send them to the next level. You told them something, some great reveal. And now they are on a different phase. But the seeming problem is, okay, what to do if now I've got some groups that are the first phase. They're coming at you when I don't know this information, when I'm really curious and I want them to get this information. And meanwhile, I have groups that just came back and they told it to me, and I know it, and so on. And turns out that this is a problem I feared very much, but turns out it's not much of a problem. Because people coming with the expectation of a theater, they are very easily succumbing to cues about, okay, I'm with them now. I'm now doing a different thing. It was something that was very not natural for me to discover, but it turns out as very natural for the public. They're okay of me existing in different time phases. You know what? Let me tell you a little about the game, because I'm starting like with technicalities already. So I'll just describe the Herodium game itself. Basically, long ago there were 2 brothers fighting against Herod at the beginning of his reign, and he won decisively. And one of them decided, okay, I'm going to learn. I'm going to be a sage. Fighting is not for Jews. I'm going to do different stuff. And the other decided, okay, we have to learn to fight from the biggest, and he became a guard of Herod. 20 years after, the sage brother is spouting some political stuff against the king, is talking against the king. The kings send the guard brother to fetch him, to bring them into the palace, and to cut his head off. Thus, the sage brother decided to curse both of them, to say, okay, if you like Herod so much, you have to stick with him. And then the both of the ghosts, the both of the brothers, are haunting the Herodium and causing trouble. The third character is the Lara Croft type of archaeologist, who is also a ghostbuster, and she's really knowledgeable. Yes, of course, it's haunting type B. You have to do this and this. This is the stuff you have to if you want to help. I'm very busy with research about Aztec ghost, but and so on. And the kids are encounter the legionary brother, the guard brother, and he's saying, yeah, it's very weird. There are strange people. I need to get them out of the castle before the king comes back. You have to help. And she may do something. First of all, he sends him into soldiery duties, like standing on the wall, fighting a little, counting stuff, scouting for enemies, for the Persians that are coming, and so on. Then the archaeologists telling, okay, it's a curse, and there's probably someone who cast, maybe he's here as well, and she's she's getting them to know, to understand archaeological information, like to read some ancient coins and stuff, and create this amulet, and she's sending them to the last ghost, to the sage downstairs, which is able to lift the curse, but he of course doesn't do it until he is persuaded, he's shown that actually the brother didn't want to kill him and tried to set him free, and it was a huge misunderstanding, and then they make a ceremony, huge ceremony to banish the ghost, to release them from the hatred, and then they are back on track, they're finishing. Yes, so this is the game, and we exist. They do go between us sometimes. They go between us, between the various puzzles that are, and we know the groups, we react to them. Okay, we saw this group, they know that and that, we will talk to them like this. Sometimes it is a very interesting sort of balancing few groups. But it's doable, it's totally doable, it's existing in few phases. Okay, strong emotional prompts. Yes, I talked a little with the intrusive acting stuff, but we really want to get judgment out of them. We really, when we talk, with the brother talk one about the other, it's always, he's a jerk, he's a nerd, he was always doing that, you shouldn't believe him, I was telling this stuff about me. They really, we tried to make them pick sides. And only after that to make peace between us. But this idea of really getting emotions out of them is very important. Yes, space design on a large scale. We want to make this kind of layer of magic and fantasy on a huge castle. So we put a lot of we have to strategically put both actors and challenges. We have our own symbol, and it's all disguised as archaeological tablets, like archaeological information, but with a unique stylistic, so people would know it's part of the game. But people are going. You want them to feel that all of the castle is ours. Is part of the story. You want to bring the power of this huge and interesting archaeological site behind it. Yes, escape room kind of challenges. Although when I was thinking about it now, I realized yes, it's not exactly because escape room without context, without this kind of social emotional context, has fewer types of challenges available. Our space design is more open because we have people, because we can. Some of the clues are verbal, because some of the, for example, in another game on this model, I am someone whose language they do not understand, and the first challenge is they have like technological box of translation, so they have to fix it before I start talking regular Hebrew to them. Before that, I speak very antique language and very confuse them. So when they like I point to it, I say stuff, I say like ancient names of letters and so on, and they so yeah, in a different challenge, they have to compare my DNA to see whose descendant am I from the two ghosts. So they have I have a coffee standing near me, and they have to sneak and put the stuff and make this experimentation to check whose descendant am I. So this mix of the human element of an actors allows us a design space that it's much bigger. Also because not every riddle has to give its own output. We can give the output. So once more, we have more zoom to plays. Okay, the foundation here is by the sites, by the archaeological site, by the municipality, by the NGO that does the cultural festival. They usually pay us. They bring the people, and we don't really care how many people they bring. So it's always nice. This is okay. This is pretty universal for the Oslo model as well. But there is a way to represent it. The sales pitch is usually that we tell your story. We can understand what your site, what your place is about, and we will bring it to the people. We show it to them through a story they would live through. Okay, so this is few stuff out of this game. This is very funny because it was in the paper, and my grandmother calls me and say, "You know, you're in the paper." I say, "What you're talking about? Why? Why should I watch paper? I haven't done anything." And then it turned out that they put it's basically for all of the tourism activities of a certain area, but they decided to take our picture as I don't know the most living. So I'm was like in a lot of newspapers now, and this is a token. This is the final riddle. We try to have final riddles to be very impressive technomagically. This is a sarcophagus. We used a lot of time. They have to push the right letters, and then there is the opening. It's opening, and the voice is saying, you know, the last memory of my brother. It's saying, no, I actually haven't killed him. I was trying to save him, but and then I'm hearing that, and I'm making this drama, and no, I'm asking, what is it all? I don't want to listen to this punk. What can you possibly tell? And they're telling it to me very excitedly, and then oh no, it was all for nothing. 2,000 years of hatred. Do you have to, and so on. Chris Carter, this is actually more little closer to an actual LARP because it does has a point of start and of end, but it's still very touristic. It happened. It took place in our biggest mall, or at least oldest and most iconic mall, and it was a Harry Potter game. They did a huge Harry Potter festival with Warner Brothers, and they wanted to actually I suggested them to do a game, and I said okay. And then like few weeks before they checked with Warner Brothers, and they said no, we don't want games. It's heretical. Don't do any Harry Potter games. But then, because it's Israel, they reached some conclusions that they would have the game, but they would not advertise it in public, and so it happened. But because Harry Potter, it was not advertised yet full. Like 300 people came in a week, and and it was like few runs of it going for 2 days. Uh, so here we differ a little because there is this kind of let me just get all of them. The building is very trifold. There is some kind of a very dramatic opening scene that shows who against who. Then there are a lot of stations which they can explore in their free time and get stuff out of them. In this case, it was like the hidden, the power of the founders of the houses of Hogwarts. So they would be able to, and they need to gather as many power of them as possible. Each group tried, okay, I have the one from Gryffindor and the one from Slytherin. There was actually a hidden fifth house, which very few have discovered. It was the house of house elves, which were also a part, but there was some subcurrent or undercurrent of like revolution, house elf revolution that was going through it, but it was pretty well hidden. So only it was basically a bonus for people that were investing in the pre-game ARG and in the lore of the stuff that we created. It was like a bonus for them to explore. But basically, fixed start scene, few four and a half, 5 stations to explore, while the NPCs are going and helping them and hindering them and trying to persuade them to join their own cause. And a fixed end scene with a fixed choice with a divergent ending. Basically, what was happening, it's one Ravenclaw girl decided that it's not fair. She was mudblood. No, she was half-blood. So she decided it's not fair that magic would be only of magicians. She discovered a hidden secret final research of Ravenna Ravenclaw to redistribute magic power. And she decided to go with it and redistribute magic power to everyone. And I was an Auror of Slytherin, but you know, a hardball detective type. And I was like, no, you cannot. It would ruin the magic word. First of all, you don't know. Maybe all the magic would diminish. Second, even if not, you would ruin the society because now there would be like no Hogwarts, only public school, losing public school when everyone has magic. If everyone has magic, no one is truly unique and special. It's better for a few to have something beautiful than to, and so on. And we had this really harsh ideological dispute all over. We're stopping and doing this, shoutings and arguments and so on, and helping everyone, of course, while trying to persuade them. And then at the back, we are doing this duel in the curious corridor, in the corridor of mysteries, while in which we are only allowed to duel with the power of Hogwarts itself, which was the stuff they were collecting for us. And basically, we had a fixed duel scene with few curses thrown on each other. It were very psychological curses like your worst fear, your like you are lost inside the corridor of your own imagination, and so on. And when we are, but basically the side with the most supporters was always winning. The side was winning, but the scene, like the ending was different, the epilogue was different. You're like, okay, that's the word you choose. Are you okay with it? And this is the model we are now doing once more into other settings. The gist of it, like I said, 2 fixed scenes at the beginning and the end. Station to explore with challenges and riddles to get resources. The NPCs are helping, and they decide who to support at the end, which is among with how well they managed decides what the ending is. Here I also got few photos. Okay, founded by ticket sale or community centers. So some are really based on ticket sales. Some are Some community centers want us to redo the Harry Potter game. In them, actually, we have quite a lot of interest. Problem is, we don't have a government for for a year and a half, so there is no budget for anything cultural. Meanwhile, there's a few photos. This is like the final scene. Me, hardball detective. Rose, Yaffa, revolutionary. Incarnation of Ravenna Ravenclaw standing. This is like the final duel. It was like, we don't see the numbers, but there were like every run has 50 people in total. No, even 60. I don't remember, either 50 or 60. Yeah, 60 people in total. So there should be about 30 people standing behind each of us. Minotaur guarding the door, and some of the challenges and so on. Like someone drinking the poison of the basilisk, sniffing the poison of the basilisk to prove she's worthy of Gryffindor. The answers lie here. Elections model. This is something that we done for the municipality elections for the city of Jerusalem, municipal elections. The city hall hired us also to promote democracy, like just festival feeling for the children. So it should be considered something fun, so they would also understand what are we talking about, what is the procedure, and what we are playing is basically made two political candidates out of the history of Jerusalem. So there was some legendary king, less legendary than David, because if he would be like a total winner. You can't trend anyone against King David, but some king and the legendary mayor of Jerusalem like 30 years ago, someone who served for a few decades. And we produced for them this kind of propaganda in many sizes, many forms, and near to 25, there were 25 points of voting booths, which we were activating all over the city with teenagers that the municipality hired to do it for us. So basically, we wrote this very simple game. We were going around as the candidates to cheer and to have the scenes with the children involved. But basically, it was operated by other people. Each of them was sitting on with a booth and saying, yeah, yes, you have to support us, so you have to not go for this guy. And each of them has a line, a very simple line of missions to do. And some of them were very like, okay, you have to create a piece of propaganda. You have to take some newspapers and cut from them and just maybe you have to propose a map. You have to propose how would you plan it, aided by our principles. Sometimes it was okay. You have to go and ask 10 random people on the street to sign it for us. Sometimes it was we have to get black propaganda on the enemy. You have to steal their materials from the other booth. You have to persuade someone to go with us. And it was this kind of list of missions, of I think 8 missions, going more or less by order, but of course with flexibility depending on the group who is participating, who is coming in. We were using them as agents because we were sending them, okay, find someone else, make a demonstration, make something, show support, and there is no, yeah, sometimes we did, at the end we did declare the result based on, because they were also voting, there were booths to vote at the end, but I think we were actually counting results every 2 hours or something like this to give hungers on something to build for, but yes, but it was like running all the day basically. Almost all the election days for 8 hours or so. It was going on, and actually, this model was devised for Someone asked us to make this kind of game for a computer game show. We decided to make something like this based on Assassin's Creed with Assassins and Templars. It didn't went off after a while. The guys who hired us were not in the business in like 2 weeks, but yes, but we used it for this. Okay, yes, this is basically it. This is basically a guided tour that is guided in character. Andreas is the character from the Herodium, the same legionary, the same like conflicted guard. And he is also now giving tours in character. And when he giving tour in characters, he describes all what he sees in his own periods. So he's saying, oh, the gates here, they're pretty rusty. Maybe they need some... and he walks in his own words and describes things out of this perspective. So this is the basic. And of course, he talks about himself. He shows... he has a personal story goes... Meanwhile, he has some sort of like he gives hints. After a while, okay, want to, maybe you can give me some advice about this. When sitting and eating, you look like a smart guy. Maybe you can help me with something. You say this brilliant, you ask these very good questions. It connects to that. So it's really like taking their input and going through this kind of personal break-ins and so on. Now there are two more actors that are joining in between, but also he's a guard. So one character is actually a thief. We managed to have some shopkeeper around, that we have a character that is stealing from him and get caught in the process. So we also like bring the city in it. But then like, what should I do with you? What I don't know. And then, brings it in chains. Okay, we have to keep her until I can get her to execution or to cut her hand off. And then also she of course, and you have to help me, there's a little game going on. We do demand choices, we do demand out of them some kind of participation. Those are characters, of course, his brother that is coming to bug him about his job and say, no, you have to visit our father is very mad, you have to he's sick, you have to reconcile, if no, then so on. Implied prompts to choices. We don't, stop the game and ask them, what do you think is the right thing to do? But it's always here, and we always try to interact with people on a personal level as much as we can to say, yes, it's very legitimate to say what do you think about this issue. We waited for, and it works. Like people, after a few prompts like this, yes, people open and say, yes, you have to do this, you have to do that. And then the situation evolves. And here we do not plan for the endings of these individual characters or even of the game itself. Like we have few pre-planned scenarios, but we are very open because it's so self-contained and we trust ourselves and the actors we work with. The public is totally free to make us do weird stuff. Yes, this is basically organized groups, sales. It is a bit expensive for what people are expecting when they take in a group tour, because it's basically the product type category is a group tour, and you have 3 people operating that and not 1 person operating that, and this is most of the cost. So it's sustainable for very specific group like strata of clients. But sometimes they do it with only 1 person, without this walk-in actors. This is basically something we did in a museum once, and like 1 season. I think it was 12 times. And now we do it for birthdays, bar mitzvahs, so on. It's basically a poor... how many times I have? 5 minutes? Yeah. Shit. Yes, exactly. So I'll go to the question. Same as the Rhodium, 1 person going around, very because he's the only character to hold it, because the game is about him, he need to be unreliable, he need to have reversal, he may be very antagonistic at the end. Usually I play catch me at the beginning, like, who are they? No, 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 don't look at me, why are you following me? Then I'm beginning to be like a little crazy, unreliably giving them information, but on an unreliable way. Then they do another stuff to switch me to the helper for me to being able to understand what to do at the end, like the lore, what, and so on. But it's supposed to be like that. Yes. Okay. Okay, I won't go to like more ideas because we don't have time. Sorry. And this is like tourism in LARP. What is tourism in LARP? You talked about LARP in tourism. Why is this reversal? Aha. Because I think what we're doing is also tourism in LARP. Because we're talking about, like, okay, what is the purpose of visit to fairy? And we have few answers. Because when it's hobby, it's I want to work here and I hope to immigrate eventually. This is why people visit LARP from hobby perspective. Corporate, it would be like business organization. Usually they have fixed goal. They want 2 hours of mafia game. They want 3 hours of EduLARP to teach them various life skills. There's something very concrete. What do they want out of you? And here is really sightseeing. I don't know. I want it looks cool, man. I want to go around and see what fairy looks like. And whoa, I'm driven in, maybe. And here we have the hugest opportunity to seduce people, to engage with us in a meaningful way. And that's it, because maybe there are some questions. I'm sorry to not to wander off.
Questions? Actually, I do have one. How do you market these products?
So, because many of this stuff is paid by municipalities, by NGOs, by other groups, we just try to go strictly to them. We go with documentation of what we did before. We go with recommendation. It's really this kind of who knows who. When we, set our feet inside some particular field, it gets much easier to move further. And also, like tourism field, there are like conferences and conventions of festivals of tourism, and then we can go and introduce ourselves and go get visit cards. Say, okay, we have really cool projects. Maybe you would bring some groups into it. But working with tourism, yes, it allows you to work on pretty high level. It allows you to. It's of course you have to present yourself according to that, but it's yeah. Any other questions? Yes, Nander?
So about the Andreas model, where you used costume tour guides. What's the average group size that you're working with? And again, the same question like before. Those are like that's a specific product. Where do you market that? What are the channels that you use?
So basically, the group size would usually be about 30 people, like about an average class. Sometimes we did it with double that. It was harder, of course, but yes. And we market that on. There are like congregates. There are websites who tender to your tourism needs. So you have a group. They have this amount of time to spend in this place. What can you offer us? And we post there, and we of course try to talk to agents that market these things and go through them because they know all the potential clients. There is some kind of built hierarchy. This product is a little bit easier because there is a niche for guided tour with something weird happening, with some added value. So it's easy to, and it's one of the most important points of marketing. If you say people, okay, I do you want to come to a LARP? People, what are you talking about? But if you manage to say, okay, we're doing it that way, but doesn't matter. I can explain it if you want. It's really cool, but this is what this product are. This is what category it goes for. This is what you need to start marketing stuff. which is sometimes a problem because the Herodium was once marketed without us knowing as an escape palace, because, and then people are coming, and I was the final station saying, but it's not an escape room, and I agree with them, it's not, but yes, so it's important to be like truthful and yes, and sharp about what exactly is, but usually you can find some kind of a niche because there are stuff nearby. Okay? Anything else? Okay.
Anything else? Anyone else? Questions? No? Okay, thank you, Daniel. Here's your cup or box, yeah, whatever.